Yeah. Did you?
You didn't get a
I'm in the wrong chair.
I don't think so.
Seriously?
He didn't get one for some reason. He didn't get invited to the Women Unite.
I'm sure there's some men's event, but
What are you changing it to?
They're taking electro off, so it's just neurodiagnostic.
we'll be out of
To me,
town.
it's still a killer. He said that some students were using it because of
You guys ready?
So then,
Call the meeting to order. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good afternoon, everyone. Apologize for my voice. Got those lovely summer colds. Do we have anyone wishing to address the board? Thanks, Vicki. Can I get an approval of the minutes of June 6th, please?
So move.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Can I get an approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. I didn't see any conflicts of interest. Okay. And can I get an approval of the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Second?
All right, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, on to the reports of the president.
President Parker, members of the board, good afternoon. It's a lovely, warm afternoon for all of us. Today we have some of our 2-year health programs. We have surgical tech, electroneurodiagnostic tech, and healthcare leadership. We do have some folks who are on vacation because it is summer. So today I have 2 folks from Surg Tech. We have Ruby Castardo and our lab specialist, Joyce Van Zee, and I'll let them come up and tell you their story.
Good afternoon, President Barker and the rest of the board members. So as Craig said, my name is Ruby Castardo. I am the Program Director for Surgical Technology, and that's going to be the first program that we talk about. Surg Tech came about World War II. They noticed that they were lacking trained surgical personnel. Surgeons that were doing the surgery on the World War II victims that were coming in did not have trained people that knew the instrumentation that they needed. So the British, they always are a little bit ahead of us when it comes to medicine, decided that they needed to start training personnel for that career field. They called them operating room beetles. Don't really like that title. So it came across the pond to the United States in about 1950, and we started training people on the job training in the operating rooms for operating room technicians. As the career field grew, as surgery becomes more intricate and more detailed, they realized, these people need to know more than just instrumentation. So they started developing educational programs. Southeast Tech graduated their very first class of operating room technicians in 1970. They had 3 graduates, 2 of whom are still working today. And that first one on the left is Patrine. She works at Sanford, and she specializes in ENT. And Colette, on my right, she works at Avera, and she specializes working in general surgery. So they were very proud of the fact that, whoa, we're the first group. So they were pretty cool about that. So Southeast is one of 7 programs that are accredited by CAHAB. It's quite a mouthful. Commission on Accreditation of Allied Health Education Programs. We're one of 7, and ARCST is an entity that helps them. They come around and visit surgical tech programs, making sure we're adhering to curriculum and program standards and outcomes. So they're we had a revisit in 2015, and Joyce and I both sweated bullets during that thing, and we were approved for continuing accreditation until 2025. I joke with Joyce, I'm going to be retired by then, so she's going to have to do it. One of the requirements of an accredited program is all students have to sit for a national certification exam We will be having a graduating class next Tuesday. They will be sitting for that exam, and they set benchmarks for different things. So with the certification exam, 100% of students have to take it. 70% of the students have to pass the test. That's the benchmark. So in 2015, when they started recording this, we had an 83% pass rate. In 2016, we had a 100% pass rate, and I threw a party for my students because I always say, you have 100%, I'm having a party. 2017, one student didn't pass, so we ended up with a 93%. So we still stand well in the benchmarks. Job placement is also a benchmark. And for 2016 and 17, we're at 100% placement of students. 2015, we were a little lower at 86. We have 16 graduating this year. All 16 have jobs already, and they're all asking for more. So then the last benchmark we have to do is an employee and student satisfaction survey. So of the 3 years that we're reporting on, we've had 100% satisfaction, both from employers and from students. So the program is doing very well in that respect. There's 2 full-time faculty members, myself. I hold a bachelor's degree in social work from Dakota Wesleyan University. One of the requirements of a program director, you have to have a bachelor's in a health science area, which social work is. And then I graduated in 1986 from Southeast with a diploma in Surg Tech. People ask me, why did you leave social work? And I said, well, I left work one day with a fat lip, bloody nose, and my favorite shirt totally ripped because one of my clients decided to use me as a punching bag. And I said, that's it. I'm going to go back to school for something else. Surg Tech appealed to me, and I've been doing that since 1986. So I always joke I go from working with juvenile delinquent teenagers to working with adult juvenile delinquents, because sometimes the people in the operating room, that's kind of how it goes. And then I'm going to let Joyce introduce herself.
Hi, President Parker and the members of the board. My name is Joyce Manzi, and I'm a certified surgical technologist. I am a graduate of Southeast Tech. I graduated back in 1992 and worked here in Sioux Falls at a couple of the hospitals here in town doing this profession. Started out at Southeast Tech back in 2006 when they had this position. And why did I choose to go teach? I did a lot of teaching in the hospital. I was always preceptoring students. I always had students with me, and I always wanted the best for them. So this was my chance to go out and kind of do it full time. My work duties is I teach the students hands-on in the lab setting, so I do all the hands-on skills. I have a lot of open labs available for them so they can come in and practice those skills. And then I also take care of any of the orders for supplies and equipment that is needed. And I also work with the hospitals and setting up clinical sites and making sure they're all good to go with their evaluations and working with preceptors and whatnot to help them with the students and getting them to what they need to have done. So.
Between Joyce and I, we've both worked at the same hospitals, so we're kind of, our students often joke that we act like more like sisters because we've been together for so long. And then we do have several adjunct instructors that help with our spring clinical. Students go to the hospitals starting in January for 2 days a week, and we have adjunct instructors there supervising and making sure students are getting orientated into the operating room, getting into the rooms to actually do the scrubs and setups of the equipment, and passing during the surgical procedure. We are a 2-year program. We have a total of 72 credits that the students take in a variety of areas. We have the 5 requirements that the state needs. We have all of the Surg Tech requirements, health core, anatomy, physiology, medical terminology. Ends up to being 72 credits. A large part of their curriculum is their clinical time. They have a spring clinical, January through May, and then they have 10 weeks of clinical during the summer. I always joke, it's the longest job interview of your life. It starts in January, it goes all the way through July. So they end up with over 600 hours of experience under their belt, and they have to scrub at least 120 surgical procedures where they set up, pass the instruments, or set up and assist the surgeon. Our students usually end up having closer to 200 cases under their belt because they're at the hospitals in this region that are very busy. So we do well in that area. Salaries, South Dakota, we start out at $37,000 and we can go as high as $39,000. That will be changing over the next few years because of our health industry is growing so much. But compared to Nebraska, they start at 36,000, topping out at 41,000. Iowa, 36, topping out at 43. And Minnesota, 41,000 up to 47,000. So it's quite a lucrative career field for a student to consider. Some of the different skills that we teach them in the lab that they have to know day one, we have to teach them how to cleanse their skin, because you can't sterilize living tissue. The only way to do that is by submitting it to 250 to 270 degrees Fahrenheit, or different chemicals that would pretty much melt your tissue off your bone. So they have to do the next best thing, which is learning how to do a surgical scrub. They have to learn how to gown and glove themselves. Their first time attempt at it takes them about 4 or 5 minutes. By the time they graduate, they're getting it under 45 seconds. They always challenge us. How fast can, so we always have a race. She usually beats me, but we're right around 40 seconds, 35. Another skill that they have to do is they have to learn how to do different draping. We are the ones usually that are draping the patient out, waiting for the surgeon to come in, so we have to understand that. And we're the ones that set up all the instruments up on the back table. So those are some of the skills for surgical technology. So Misty, who is the END instructor, she decided she'd rather be in the Caribbean on a cruise than here today. So I'm taking over for her for this aspect. There are one full-time instructor, which is Misty Armstrong, and then an adjunct, Darla Klinger, that comes in and helps with the different labs. So do any of you know what an ENDT person would do? That's the acronym. Any of you ever gone in for a sleep study or a carpal tunnel? The technicians who do that are trained electrodiagnostic neurotechnologists. They do 3 basic procedures that are done either in the clinic or the hospital setting to help the physician make a diagnosis and help determine what is wrong with that patient. One of them you've probably heard of are EEGs, electroencephalograms, doing a brain study. They will do those for patients who are suffering from seizure disorders, a stroke, or a trauma. Another aspect of their area is then they end up doing, I have to look at it again, it's called a polysomnography, or PSG. I love acronyms, they're much better. They're basically those studies that are done for people who have sleep disorders, people who have apnea, the different kind of things, because people don't realize that not getting enough sleep can often have problems with their general health and with heart attacks and strokes as well. The last area that Joyce and I are more familiar with are evoke potentials that our ENDT techs do. They come into the operating room, they hook you up with all these gizmos, and then during surgery, they track your nerve conduction studies. When we put in hardware for a cervical neck fusion, we want to make sure that it's not impinging on the nerves, or when we're doing back surgery. So the evoke kids come in and do that. They come into our lab before they go to clinical, and we dress our patient out. We don't do surgery on real people. We have to do it on mannequins, but that's okay. And she ends up asking questions. Okay, we've lost T3 through 4. What's the problem? So they have to crawl underneath. So it's kind of an intense, so they have to know a little bit about sterile and aseptic technique. Let's see. They are one of the 7 accredited programs out at Southeast. Their body that helps KHAB make sure that they're staying in alignment is a different entity, Committee on Accreditation for Neurodiagnostic Technology. Some of the different skills they do in the lab, they love volunteers, so if you ever want to come out and have an EEG done or any of this stuff, they would love you to come out and they would hook you all up. But they practice putting the electrodes, first on a mannequin's head, then on each other. What's unique about the ENDT lab is that half the time they're there, they're the technician. The other half, they're the patient. So they have a good idea of what it feels like to be both, to do both. The picture in the middle is my husband was coming in to have a sleep study done. He volunteers every spring or every fall. He loves it. He tries to trick them, but they always catch him with his eyes open. So it is a 2-year associates. The first 4 semesters, they are on campus doing all of their didactic and their clinical, and then they spend their last semester full-time out at the hospitals in the tri-state area. Typically, hospitals is where they work, but they do work at some clinics in the neuro industry, and then they will travel. You've got lots of small hospitals in the area. You've got a group of patients that need to have a nerve study done or a sleep study done. They will actually take a semi, like you've seen with other programs, and they'll go down there and they'll do the test there. So they do some traveling. So that's the NDT. Last program, I have a bet with Craig. He's timing me. If I get done in 15 minutes, he gets me my favorite soda, which is a vanilla Coke. I'm way past time, so I'm going to have to buy him a Mountain Dew. So Mylin, who is the academic advisor for healthcare leadership, is camping at Peace Creek, which is over by Geddes. So I tried to get her to come back, but she wanted to stay. But that's okay. So this program was basically started to help our diploma students, if they wanted to go on to get more education and to earn an associate's degree. This program was set up to help those people do that. It is changed from, used to be called Ally Health Leadership, now they changed it to Health Leadership. What happens is a student has to complete another program in the health area, bring those credits over to this to earn the rest of the credits needed for the associates. A lot of the classes that they have available can be done online. They can be done at the same time that they are in their original core program, or it can be done anytime that they feel it. The classes they take are quite unique to that respect in that it deals more with teaching them how to be business managers, how to manage a clinic, how to manage a area that they're working in. So it's an additional 31 credits to their diploma program, and then they get an associate's. When I first started, Surg Tech was a diploma program, and this was a great option. I had one student, I don't want a diploma, I want a degree, so this was a great option for her to go back and get that. One of the things that they do is that she specializes, and they picked a lot of business classes to help really solidify that background, so that if they are in a small area and they need someone to do coding, to code these, they have that ability to take a course so that they can learn that. To do insurance filing, they have a business course where they do that. So they're a very, very valuable source in our smaller clinics and hospitals. So she laid out basically what you would get paid with or without the degree. For our phlebotomists who come in and draw blood, they get paid a little bit more if they have their AAS degree. Same thing with farm technicians that are working in a hospital setting, and our LPN programs. They can start out a significant amount higher with that associates because they have a little bit more business and health leadership. So I think that's all that we have. So thank you for your attention, and we would love to take questions if you have any.
I'm kind of curious about the courtship and marriage course that I saw there.
Yes. We have a lot of young students who, it's kind of interesting. I always look around this room, and those people who want to take it are usually the ones who are freshly engaged, and they know they're getting married, so they can take that to their minister and say, see, we did a 16-week. Most of our students take social problems. Okay. Which is one or the other, because you can do one or the other in the thing. I would say courtship and marriage for all of them, but most of them rather take social problems.
Thank you.
With your program being a national exam, then it's portable to
yes, they can work in any of the 50 states, plus awesome. In Puerto Rico, England, and take it across the waters. I had a friend who did a work exchange, and so she went to Australia, and someone came here to work for her here. So yeah. It's a very hard test. Yeah. Very hard. Joyce and I both took it and we passed it. We're never going to have to take it again. You have to maintain educational credits in order to maintain your certification, 60 within 4 years. So they had kind of hold us to a high bar, making sure you're getting the education that you need.
Do you offer those at Southeast Tech then, those recertification, or do you go elsewhere? Basically
they can, but usually they take their initial certification on campus. We're a web-based testing center. They can, once they get approval to take it, they can contact Southeast Testing Center, and they could take it there. They either do it at Southeast or they do it at Sylvan Learning Center is where they do it. But yeah, so.
You mentioned that your program has 16 graduates. Is that
This year.
Is that about normal, or what's the maximum?
No. When we transitioned from diploma to the 2-year students, we kind of had a lull. Our cap is 35.
Okay.
We have 29 second years starting in the fall semester.
Nice.
Incoming freshmen, we have 45. We accepted 10 more because in 2019, Avera on Louise is going to be opening. They need 20 techs just for that part. Which means then those 20 are coming, so there will be a huge demand. I got a letter from the Lincoln, Omaha, Creighton area. They have a $12,000 bonus to come down there and work. There's a very big shortage because baby boomers my age are starting to retire, and so they're trying to fill.
And the other programs that you talked about, do they have similar enrollment or a similar capacity?
They're a little bit smaller because I'm not sure about Misty's enrollment cap. Do you know?
She's trying to, normally for ENDT, we want something in the teens. She's been anywhere from as low as 8 to about 20. So we're looking at a name change for her, and then she just redid curriculum dramatically and reduced her credit load by probably about 12 credits. So we're trying, and then she's also looking at offering hers in maybe more of a hybrid format to try to make it better for non-traditional students. And then healthcare leadership, that does vary, and kind of what they were saying is, depending upon if students come into one area and then like to branch off, if they get a job immediately, that enrollment will always be lower. And right now, I know when my wife went to work for Avera, it was like over 1,000 openings. So there's such need in healthcare. Until there's a lull, that is never going to be a high enrollment program. Because it's kind of that add-on to it.
Yep. Our accreditation cap for Surge Tech is 35. So this year, it's a one-time increase. If we see the need continuing, then we would have to ask accreditation to allow us to up the cap permanently.
Sure.
Yeah. Every time I go to the hospital to visit students, because that's part of my job, it's always here, and they follow me around with apples. I'm not, sorry, I'm retiring in 2 years. She doesn't know that, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, one of the hospitals was asking me to come back. I'm like, no, I like my job where I'm at right now.
There is a huge need for Surge Tech. There really is. Just because of all the building, but Sioux Falls Specialty added 4 ORs. Avera's adding 8, so there's a big need for Surge Tech in Sioux Falls.
Yes, thank you very much
Thank
for the
you.
information.
Thank you. Okay, can I get a motion and a second to approve the academic program overview report?
So moved.
Second.
Great. Any further discussion? No, just thank you both again for being here and for giving us your highlights. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you all very much.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, Rich, you're up.
President Parker, members of the board, I always wondered who was going to fill in for me if I was ever gone. I think Ruby would be perfect. There's a lot of comparisons to budget and surgery in some instances, and if I talk for the full 35 minutes, we'll have a sleep study too tonight. So I don't know why this document's not coming up, but I can speak to the general changes in the FY19 budget. The post-secondary fund, we had some additional revenue that was identified from the tentative adoption in May to this point in time, $226,940 in additional revenue, spread in 3 general areas. One was in local sources. It's a reimbursement from the Housing Foundation, which you folks acted on at a prior board meeting authorizing the hiring of an additional position, and that's 100% reimbursement from the Housing Foundation. The second piece came up in our council meeting and discussion. There was some additional appropriation through the legislature last year for some M&R, $77,908. We don't have that planned or programmed at this point, given that where we're at in the school year starting, it's probably going to wind up being carried over into next year. We've got some bigger things coming up, but all in all, there's some additional resources there, but nothing specifically identified for it. And the third category where we had some additional revenue was in our federal sources. Perkins allocation went up in a couple different areas. The largest piece of it was in capital equipment that we could purchase through that grant. There was $68,268 additional federal funds in that. And then there were some smaller dollar amounts in the non-traditional and equity programs. That's run through student success as a way to draw, just as they say, non-traditional students into technical programs, and then to try to do some equity in terms of gender and bringing folks into programs that wouldn't typically be, that gender would be in them. So those are the major sources, or the only three sources of additional revenue. The expenditure side increased by the same amount in varying areas and degrees. Obviously, some of it's earmarked. We made some changes as we went through the process from the preliminary adoption to now. We had some late resignations, so we shifted some dollars and some resources. So when you look at the regular salaries as being the largest individual changes, we decreased clerical salaries. We had a vacancy in financial aid, and then we had a late resignation in the academic areas. And we're redirecting, utilizing those dollars and redirecting them in different areas. So if you look down below, you see employment contract salaries in that summary increasing by $166,000. One of those is to create a dedicated financial aid director position, making some changes in that operation to better serve our students, and then redirecting some of those academic resources into, and I never get the title right, so academic teaching learning technologists. So we're reinvesting those dollars in that. So it's just moving some things around on the table and utilizing those resources more effectively as we head into the next year. Related to the dedicated sources, the federal dollars obviously are very specific towards programs. So some of the increases, the federal work study, there was $16,420 for that. That increases what we can offer to students in a work study application. So we have additional dollars to spend on that. As I indicated, there's about $70,000 in equipment that we'll be able to buy with additional federal dollars. So we're buying some things in invasive, some EKG machines, made some increases in the auto area. We had probably a low estimate on some vehicle replacements, so we were able to bump that up a little bit. Some additional welders for our welding program. So sticking those dollars back into those programs. As you look at, like I said, a lot of movements in the wages, a lot of moving things around. Obviously, there's a benefits element that flows to that. That's reflected in there's some minor changes in the retirement accounts. You see the SDRS and Social Security increasing by a little bit because overall that salary aspect is going up. That filters down into the insurance benefits. They're calculated as a percentage of wages. So you get that in the long-term disability, work comp. Hospital medical insurance increases, those change because of those late resignations and moving things around. I think I spoke to you before about how when I bring those new folks in, we never know what they're going to enroll in, so we always look at our maximum exposure as we go to develop a budget. One change, we were able to carve off some resources for something that we feel is desperately needed, is an applicant tracking software. I think that became very evident this year with a lot of the turnover, probably more than we've ever had, that we needed to step up and look at a different product. And we've been kicking this around and exploring this for a little while, but I think we were able to carve off some resources to move forward with that application. Already spoke to the building improvements. It's earmarked, right? It has to be specifically dedicated for building M&R. We just don't have it earmarked for a specific program yet, so we'll develop that as we head into our next capital improvement cycle. One thing I did note, I always put in a suggested motion on there, and I think we need to modify, just saw it as I was sitting over there in the Fund 54. We do need to identify, as you, I'll just speak to it, but as you make the motion, I think we need to add $10,555 into the cash from fund balance because I've got the available funds not covering the expenses in the child care fund. So I apologize for that oversight, but that is one change that we do need to make. It's a very high-level summary of the changes. Post-secondary fund is still balanced, which is what we brought forward in May. The other funds are as presented. There was no change in any of the enterprise funds, so everything's same.
You don't want to stretch this out a little bit longer?
I sure can.
We've got some time.
If I could get the PowerPoint to come up or the image to come up, I would go on.
Does anybody have any questions for Rich?
I don't think so.
No?
Ken's not even tapping his pencil yet. I still
No,
got time.
you've got time left, but I just, I know that with growth, there are challenges, and we've all been through the challenges with declining enrollment, but with this last year and a half, almost 2 years now, with the enrollment increases, there are challenges that come along with that, that I know that you have worked very hard, Rich, you and your team, to meet those challenges to get that all figured out. And technology's not your gift, numbers are, thankfully, but you've really done very, very good work, and I appreciate it, sitting on Budget Committee for K-12 and on the Tech Council. I've seen what you have all done, and you've stepped up in ways that I wasn't necessarily expecting. So thank you for that. I know that doing away with the whole continuing contract and all of that, getting the new employee handbook and that manual put together, that's been a huge piece of work for all of you, and don't think for a second that it isn't appreciated. We know what has gone into that. So.
Well, and I think just to acknowledge Kathy Strzok's effort in compiling that document and being part of the various President's Council groups that are meeting and discussing. She has worked tirelessly on it. I just periodically look and nod my head when she comes in with some suggestions. So she's really done the heavy lifting on that, and really in terms of archiving it and recording it, obviously it's input from a lot of different resources, a lot of different folks weighing in on it. So I think at the end of the day, it's a good product. It should be a good guide for anybody coming in to begin working with Southeast. And, you know, on the other side of it, the transition seems easier than when you were looking ahead at it. So I think we're grateful to be moving on.
Good. Thank you.
Okay.
I would, I don't see the proposed motion here. Okay. I moved that we adopt the FY19 budget for Southeast Technical Institute as follows, written out with the one change of the, $10,555?
Correct.
Change from what is written.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Anything else for the good of the order? Oh, we've got one more
He's sneaking up there.
addendum to the agenda.
Good afternoon, President Parker, members of the board. Since we had a few minutes, I just thought I would, I always like to thank the faculty that take the extra time to come in here and visit with you about the programs. As you can tell, they're quite proud, and they have reason to be. I mean, again, the Surge Tech program, another example of an extremely strong program that has done really good things for our students in the community. In a recent meeting with the Vice President for Human Resources of both Avera and Sanford, we had them out on campus a couple months ago, and we talked about all the many, many needs that they have And the top program area that they said they are short in terms of skilled staff would be Surge Tech. And so they were asking us to try to ramp up the program, and thanks to Dr. Peters and his help, and in both Joyce and Ruby, we were able to bump up those numbers. And fortunately, there's a lot of interest in that program, and I think overall that's helping our enrollment numbers. I went and talked with the registrar today and about that, and I think specific point in time, we're slightly up in credits, slightly down in head count as a comparison to last year, but a lot of that lines up with now our AARs in terms of how many AARs. And I think at this point, Megan, am I correct? Last year at this time, I think we had 9 AARs.
Yep.
And right now we've had 8, and our 9th is coming this Friday, which right now has, I think, 110 students signed up. So, you know, that's very good. It's a positive number, and we're continuing to work hard to do our best to try to ensure, again, another positive outcome that Kent referred to in terms of our overall numbers. The last piece of information I wanted to convey, though, was my thanks to Eric Van Laken, who led the VP of Academic Affairs Search Committee. We had 5 faculty that served on that committee, and 3 administrators and 1 staff member. And they worked very, very hard. It was a difficult search from the sense that we had a number of very, very strong and well-qualified candidates. So I know they had to work hard in terms of getting the finalists out to campus. We had 3 finalists out the last couple of weeks, and I am happy to report that last week we extended an offer to Dr. Benjamin Valdez out of Denver, Colorado, who accepted, and hopefully will be starting in August. So we're not sure yet on the timing, but if we can arrange it, we'll try to have him here in front of you in August, so you'll have a chance to meet with him. And we're also working on trying to find a time for a campus community type reception as well. So with that, again, I want to thank you for your help and support with the budget. It's not been an easy year, as we have talked about in relation to budget numbers. But everybody's worked hard, and I think we will continue to go forward and hopefully continue to improve the programs. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anything else? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
We are adjourned. Thank you.